Okay, so we've got our art person, and you'll have to tell me your name.
Karen Tolley.
Karen Tolley is going to just start presenting the art information while we're eating, and we'll go from there. So we're just going to go ahead and start that. So go ahead.
Thank you. So I'm Karen Tolley, a program specialist working in the Beverly Taylor Sorensen Arts Learning Program. I don't feel like I'm very loud. So today we are presenting artwork from Edison Elementary in the Salt Lake City School District. And the arts educator there is Suzanne Malloy, and she has mostly focused on space this month, or for this month, but we also wanted to present some animal masks. So here on the east wall, these are animal masks that were created by second graders, and they learned about texturing with paint and applique and how that can replicate texturing on fur and feathers and other facial features. Try saying that 10 times. On the west wall, we have third grade art. We have phases of the moon, and they studied about how the rotation of the moon around the earth and the rotation of the earth around the sun causes the phases of the moon. They also learned about planets and recreated some of our planets and learned about how the planets also revolve around the sun. Mingled in with our moon phases and the planets, we have some stars that were created by the kindergarten students, and they were studying the Earth and its atmosphere and how the stars are above the Earth's atmosphere, and also that our sun is a star. On the back wall on the north, we have some first grade art. They learned about we're learning about our universe, and they had the opportunity to watch some videos produced by NASA, learning the composition of galaxies and nebulas, and then they created their own galaxies and nebulas for you to enjoy. Also, we have fifth grade students represented. Here amongst, on the very left, we have three-dimensional space tigers that were created by the fifth graders. And they also created some other space creatures that are back amongst our galaxies and nebulas. My favorite being the astronaut platypus, because, why not? So the fifth graders were learning about gravity and how that affects objects on the earth, and they also learned about weightlessness. So I hope you enjoy this artwork from our friends at Edison Elementary, and I want to thank you for your continued support of Beverly Taylor Sorensen Arts Learning Program and fine arts throughout our state. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. And I want to give Karen a shout out. She's usually behind the scenes, but she's the one that's in here hanging the art every month and collecting it and taking it back to the school. So she's really the machine behind making this happen every single month. And so it was fun to see you, Karen, actually presenting the work that you do. So just thank you every month for making this happen for all of us. We really appreciate it. Let's see, who's driving for me? Oh, there you are, Ryan. So close, yet so far away. Okay. I think we'll just jump right into Employees of the Month then. So we'll start with Jody Parker. And Jody, if you notice, she was here through evening hours, but I told her she needed to make the right choice and be home with her 3-year-old. And we're so proud of Jody. She was our July Employee of the Month, so we have 2 to present this month. She has been such a great mentor and friend to her colleagues, and she was nominated by her supervisor, Nathan Ock, She works on 3 different boards, including the Society of State Leaders of Health and Physical Education, Huntsman Cancer Institute Community Council, and the University of Utah Drive Out Diabetes. This is in addition to all the other work that she does. She's on committees such as one of our strategic plan groups, Utah Action for Healthy Kids, the Utah Shape Board, Content Integration Team, Wellness Team. And she is really key to making sure that schools participate and they're prepared by engaging in CPR training. Now, one of the fun things that she gets to do is human sexuality. I say that in jest because it's always controversial and it's a hot topic. And she does a great job of really making sure that our teachers and our LEAs are following state code, that they have the resources they need to provide support and be compliant. And she also oversees a national grant. So she is just really known nationally as a great leader in the health space. And we love her as an employee because she's so kind and congenial and always the first to raise her hand and help others. And she does so many things so quietly. So this was a really lengthy nomination. So those are some of the highlights. But Jody, we are just all big Jody Parker fans. And I know you as board members who have had the chance to work with Jody, I know that you've expressed to me, to Dr. Norman, to others, how much you appreciate Jody and the not only the great job she does on a daily basis, but just how easy she is to work with. And we really appreciate Jody, and we were very excited to be able to honor her in July, even though you didn't have an official board meeting where we could do that. So let's give a shout out to Jody, who may or may not be watching online, but hopefully she feels our love. All right, and next we'll go to, let me see if I can break this up. Yes, come on. I have a little technical issue here. Okay, our next employee of the month for August is Dr. Malia Height. And did you hear that, Malia? There was yeah, lots of love. So, first of all, I'm going to give you a little list of things that she does or has done. So Malia Height, Dr. Height took over coordinator responsibilities in educator licensing during a time that, let's just say, it was less than ideal. There was a lot of turnover in key positions. We were about to completely overhaul the whole licensure structure. And her nominator, again, her great supervisor, Dr. Thronson, said, "I can say with certainty that if anyone else were at the helm of this department during this time, the ship would have gone down in flames. Somehow, miraculously, Malia was able to keep the ship afloat while replacing each wooden plank one at a time while it continued to sail in stormy waters." It's such a great description of what we watched her go through. Now, I might add that we hired Malia during the pandemic. So just add. Oh, that's right. First day so that would have been like March 13th, 17th on the Monday or Tuesday. So super great time for induction to move her into all this. So to list all of her accomplishments would take several pages. So we're just going to take a couple of highlights. So this is what she's done already in the short span of time she's been with us in licensing. She's improved background check procedures, transitioned from her old licensing structure to new, helped write and interpret a multitude of new administrative rules and laws, increased the size of licensing staff to better handle the workload, converted systems to digital instead of submitting physical files, which in itself is a feat, converted the digital system into a system that better tracks applicants applying so that things get in the queue and don't get lost. She has really worked to make sure that we mitigate all of our audit findings. She oversaw the implementation of the APLA programs across the state, created support groups to provide recommendations and feedback for licensing and policy, created a newsletter, which has been awesome, really well received, to inform the constituents of changes in licensing, and has really been working with USIMS and Cactus. So again, that's just a short list of her accomplishments. But as we mentioned with Jody, Malia is just a favorite around here because she's not only wicked smart, but she's fun, willing to raise her hand and just lean in and do whatever it takes. And she keeps us smiling. So hard worker, smart, and Malia, you are just beloved, and we are so happy to honor you for our August Employee of the Month. And thank you for sticking around. All right. Now I will zip through, try to zip through my report. It really could take about 45 minutes. I'll try to do it in about 10. We're trying something new. Board member Bogus asked me something. It might have been in June, and it got me to thinking. So we don't always have this ready for backup because some things happen at the last minute that we want to highlight. We're often making changes, and I just thought it might be nice for you to have a takeaway. And we expertly acquire employees, and we also expertly acquire ideas from places we go and other agencies. And the idea of maybe having a handout for you with my report, just so you kind of get the highlights of it. And then if there's something that you think about and you want to ask me about later, please do so. And then give us feedback if this is helpful or you just don't want the paper. But we're thinking that this 2-pager might be advantageous, especially when we have a lot coming at you in a report. So give me feedback later if you like it or don't. Won't take it personally. Just trying to think of ways to kind of give you this reminder if there's something you want to follow up on. So with that, Chair Moss and I were talking about, when I've been at a meeting this summer, I've sent him a text, hey, I'm here, wish you were here learning about this with me, or here's something fun that I'm learning about, or something important. So he asked me he said I would be interested to have the board learn about what you're out doing and learning about. So I appreciate that invitation, Chair Moss. So this basically all happened in the end of June and July. So I'll give you a brief overview. And you can see kind of where I've been around the country. And it's not about my travel, it's about what I'm sharing. And you've heard me say I am the chief cheerleader or cheerleader in chief. And that's what I've been out doing. So first I went to NASTEC, which is the national licensing body. And Malia could tell you exactly what that acronym stands for, but it's about teacher credentialing. And it's the national organization. And they asked me to come and speak on a panel. Sorry, Ryan, next, I'll pause. There you go. They asked me to come and speak about how did we get legislation passed so quickly on the Teacher Mobility Compact? And you'll recall that I had the opportunity to weigh in and be on the advisory council. So we did have an in, but this came from the Department of Defense and military, looking at military spouses and how can we make transitions easier for them. We heard stories of military spouses who were just really caught up in going state to state, and each time they went to a new state, the licensing sometimes was overwhelming, and then they just chose not to teach. So that's kind of where this started. And a compact generally takes about 10 states to be a part of. And so we became the first state to get legislative support. Representative Jefferson Moss carried this for us. He was very excited about it very early on. And so we kept pushing to try and get this work done before the legislative session. It did get woven into Senate Bill 35 that was sponsored by Senator Bramble because they had a few more agreements they wanted to pass. The Reciprocal Professional Licensing Amendments was the title of the bill, but they had a number of compacts within that bill. So 10 states quickly signed on. Our governors get pretty competitive, and so I think they urged one another to be the first, second, third. And so 10 states signed on, so we're ready to launch. So that means if you are part of a state that is a member state in a compact, as long as you pass a background check and you've been a teacher, you can come without having to go through our out-of-state procedure and looking at transcripts and all of that. So that's what I was sharing about how we made that happen. Then I went to ISTE, International Society of Technology and Education. We've had members of our staff who have been leaders in this organization and continue to support it. Rick Gaisford I wear a t-shirt when I go to ISTE that just says I'm with Rick because he's super famous. So Sarah Young and I wear t-shirts because everybody wants to know if we know Rick Gaisford. They wanted to know in a roundtable with state education chiefs how we created a plan that enabled us to be more prepared than other states during the pandemic. So I just told our digital teaching and learning story, what we're doing now, how we've engaged in broadband efforts to get broadband into families that are in rural and remote places, and how we've been able to close the digital divide. in a more rapid pace than some of our neighbors. So they just ask a lot of questions, and it was fun to be able to share. From there, I went to ECS, Education of Commission of the States. Member Hart, Vice Chair Hart, was there with me, which was awesome. I was asked to serve on a panel of 2 to talk about our retention efforts. And they wanted to know specifically what we had done with mentoring. So I appreciated that this conversation came up earlier today. They wanted me to highlight our mentoring framework that our staff worked on, and particularly our mentoring advancement project. So I don't know if Cammie's had a chance to share this in committee or not, but she and others held 50 focus groups of new teachers and mentors. They looked at roles and competency of mentors in the system, which we mentioned earlier today. And then they developed mentoring models. And we have, I believe there are 11 that are live now on our website, with 1 under construction and 3 more to go. And so if you go to educator development on our website, you'll see all of this information, including those modules. And we have districts that have incorporated the modules right into their induction and mentor training. Granite, I think Davis, there are a couple of others who are using these fully. So they're accessible for anyone and everyone. And we've had other states ask if they could access those as well. And they're right on our website. And then last but not least, just a little bit about our Apple program, like how are we supporting our LEAs as they work to support and grow their own teachers. And with that, I want to announce, because we haven't done so publicly, that Utah has been working on getting an apprenticeship, a formal apprenticeship through the Department of Labor. And we expressed our desire to do that. And Talent Ready Utah was also looking at apprenticeships for the health industry and a couple of other industries. So a grant quickly came up, and Talent Ready Utah applied for the grant, and they just rolled teaching apprenticeship into the apprenticeship grant. We were awarded that grant, and we were one of 45 states that got the base funding, which was just under $500,000. And then we were one of only 7 states that got the state-specific opportunity grant, and that brings us to about 5.8 million. So you can see the goals of the grant there, and happy to talk more about it. But again, Talent Ready Utah applied for the grant, and we were really appreciative that they included teaching as part of that apprenticeship. So that means that there will be funding going out to LEAs who apply for the grant. I don't have the details yet, but LEAs will be able to apply to engage in these apprenticeships. And we've already had people interested, just raising their hands saying, we really want to be a part of this. So that's pretty exciting. I was invited to the Aspen Institute. Aspen Institute has a number of things they do at their institute. I was invited to the Education and Society portion of it, and the topic was bipartisan support for public education. And I was not asked to. I was asked to come prepared to talk about our Utah Porch for Graduate, which everywhere I've been this summer, that's all they talk about. And, I really appreciated hearing your perspective in your comments this morning, Board Member Bogus. I would love to follow up with you on it. I feel, and this is something that gets highlighted a lot, that it's a great way for students to find themselves and have individual and personalized experiences. And I see it as the opposite of cookie cutter. So I really want to follow up with you and have a conversation about that, so I understand your perspective. I know Board Member Klein and others have expressed concerns. So we really should have some open conversations, because as we're being highlighted all over the country for Utah Portrait for Graduate. It's been called elegant. It's been called the most comprehensive. The fact that it was done by a group of educators, that local, it's not a mandate. It's meant to be something that LEAs take on and do work if they want to on their own. So anyway, it's just been highlighted. I talk about it everywhere, but in this case, we had some really interesting conversation on civic education and some data that is concerning of how many of our young people feel disconnected from just the system of our country and what our republic is about. And so how do we promote civic education? Um, and our Porch for Graduate was called out as a way that they see that embedded in several different places. They wanted to know about our NAEP scores with eighth grade math specifically. And then also, you might recall the next generation accountability system that hasn't gone much further than discussion with the board, but that was given a shout out by a couple of different places where they see it as a way to really think about getting into different kinds of assessment just beyond the metrics that we've been using, and looking at different ways to show the picture of the school and the community. And so I think the work that the board did on that is really commendable, and the fact that others wanted to know about it. I just wanted to share that those are the things we were talking about. So it wasn't so much a formal presentation, but things that came up in conversation that they wanted to highlight in Utah's work. So really, really proud that people are noticing these things. The next part is Dr. Norman and I get to engage in a summer convening each year by virtue of our roles, and we meet with peers. So this was where, again, Porch for Graduate was called out for the ability that we have to really highlight mastery. They were because some portraits of learners, portraits of graduates don't always call that out. They go right to the durable skills or whatever you want to call them. And the fact that we embed mastery and highlight that, they wanted to know more about. So we talked about that. And again, people calling it out without us having to raise our hand. What we learned about was artificial intelligence. It came up almost in every convening I went to this summer. So we're in that space like everyone else. We're learning about it, and the good parts of AI and the challenging parts of AI. One of the parts of AI that came up, and I think this is Hadi Pavardi talked about this. He is the head of code.org. And he said one of the best uses of artificial intelligence is to alleviate the burdens for teachers, thinking about how it can write lesson plans, help with IEPs, generate a lot of information and take care of a lot of paperwork that teachers have to engage in. And that was something that I'm not sure that I had thought about. So more to come, and we're studying this as we go and finding ways to use it in positive ways, while at the same time I think we have to be very vigilant about the nefarious ways that it's being used. So as a board, I think that's something that I know I've heard a lot of you talk about, and we may want to think about some kind of presentation where we all understand together what should we be doing proactively as policymakers. And then I'll just flip to our summer convenings. We were busy in Utah. Our educators, our staff are really busy all summer long supporting professional learning. And I know that many of you went to Utah rural schools, and I hope for you first timers who went that you just really found joy in the camaraderie and the learning that went on. Some of you have been for several years, and we had about 63 staff members who were engaged in helping develop a session or presenting a session. And here are some of the sessions that were shared. And at the end of my remarks, I'll see if you have any questions or want to comment on your experiences at some of these convenings. The next convening I'll highlight is one you may not be familiar with, called Earth Connections Camp. This is to provide traditional cultural activities and STEM programs for American Indian and Alaska Native students from local schools. There are 3 camps that are held every year. This year it was at Red Butte Garden, Thanksgiving Point, and Ophir Education Center in the Tooele School District. The partnerships include the local agencies and the Go Shoot tribe. And Dr. Foster can tell you more about that if you want more information. One of the highlights of this summer was the Meaningful Inclusion of Students with Disabilities Conference. You can see that we had over 2,500 educators registered, and these were big crowds. They were in regional places all over the state. They were free. They were 1.5 days, and they featured keynote speakers, thought-provoking panel discussions, and expert-led sessions on best inclusion practices, along with tools and resources for implementation. And just a brief reminder, when we talk about meaningful inclusion, it really requires intentional collaboration across the education system. And so this conference allowed participants to really learn more about what we mean when we say inclusion. I know that board member Davis went on a trek to Washington to see it in practice. And while we talk about it, what does it look like, sound like? How is it different than how we might think about inclusion? So to be able to share those practices and have our teachers working together and talking together and learning from each other. There were school administrators, general and special education teachers, instructional coaches, paraeducators, related service providers, educator preparation program staff, and student teachers in attendance. And they were the feedback we got from these regional meetings as this overall conference was just outstanding. Now, last but not least, this is super important. I try to always share something with our strategic plan as we hold ourselves accountable for the strategic plan. So today I am reporting on the Safe and Healthy Schools goal, and we have 3 strategies within the goal. You can see 3A, 3B, and 3C. And one is about creating and maintaining the safe conditions for healthy learning environments, increasing the adoption of evidence-based student health and wellness practices, and building capacity of educators and other stakeholders to meet students' mental, emotional, and social needs. So those have been the strategies that staff have been working on. And I'm going to just report on 3B and 3C. And as a reminder, the way this trickles up, we have a goal leader, then we have strategy leaders, and we have cross-department staff working on these strategies together. We have what we call some meetings where they summarize what they've been doing. And then those summaries are brought to us by the goal leader, facilitated by Chief of Staff Young, where we have a stock-taking meeting. And so I'm hearing about all of these strategies several times throughout the year. So, so I'm reporting on this to you, and I just want to remind you of that structure of how this all comes up. So the progress to date on 3B, you can see there, we've had a wellness policy that was revised, and we now have an evaluation tool that LEAs can choose to use. We have survey results that kind of identified 2 cohort groups that wanted more support in this area. And so the first cohort, reading glasses, sorry, the first cohort is made up of, well, let me tell you who the survey was sent to. The survey went out to LEA heads, school nurses, nutrition directors, health and physical education leads, mental health specialists, prevention specialists. This went out in January. And the 2 cohort groups are supported by our USBE wellness team, and they help support comprehensive health and wellness policies. So the first cohort was Canyons and Cash, and they had teams that came together, as well as local board members and legal counsel. And then the second cohort that is being put together, I think I don't have that here, but I want to say it's Granite and Davis and a few others. So let me just go to the next one. So these 2 cohorts really, again, focused on policy work. What does their health and wellness policy look like, and what kind of resources do they need? And they're supporting each other, and we just facilitate that work. So cohort 2, here are the schools. I was behind. Salt Lake, Provo, Kane, Walden Charter, Iron, Sevier, Ogden Prep, Weber, Logan, Venture Academy, and Emory County. So hopefully most of you heard one of your districts or charters in there. So again, we'll utilize the data that was collected by the evaluation tool, and that will help us assess practices and policies and assist the LEAs with implementation of their updated comprehensive health and wellness policies. And then we'll continue to develop evidence-based health and wellness training, resources, and supports for educators. And then with 3C, excuse me, they put together, this group has put together a scope of work for an educator assessment and well-being course to be sent out for solicitation, and it's been sent to purchasing. And I don't know if anybody has updates on this. I think it's probably still in purchasing. They have looked at data from teacher perspectives from a variety of places that we already have in existence to inform the team of what are the issues out there with educator wellness. You know, we talk about student wellness all the time, but how are our teachers? And you've all heard that they're overwhelmed. that they've got a lot on their plates and we want to be able to support them. I remember this was a few years back. We had a group of teacher leads from Japan come and visit us here at the office. This was a number of years ago. And they were talking about our school counseling model and what we do for students. And I was struck that one of them said, well, how do you hire your teacher counselors? And I wasn't sure what they meant. I thought they meant counselors in schools. And they said, no, counselors of support for your teachers, like well-being for your teachers. And that was just something that they normally do and something that we don't do. And that was a real eye opener for me that there were other countries really paying attention to educator wellness. So we're trying to think of ways that we can just really support our educators through the stress. And I think some of you have been very vigilant, if not most of you, in thinking about what we can take off their plate, and that will help. But are there other ways that we can support them? I know I certainly focused on that as a principal, always trying to be mindful of not only their workload, but what are some things that we could do to help them be healthy. So that is 3C, some things that we're working on. I know that was a lot. Thank you so much for indulging me. I was trying to catch up from 2 months and make sure that I reported on our strategic plan. So give me feedback to see if this helps you and what I'm open to questions or comments. Did you not get a
Oh.
copy?
I didn't get a copy.
Oh, did you? Maybe I did. Hold on.
It's okay. You can have another.
Got
one.
extras. Take it. Questions, comments? Member Lear? Member Norton?
Yeah, I got 3 comments. And I'm gonna wait till Sid's on task because I want her to answer. No, but Dr. Dixon, I love your handout. I
Okay.
love handouts. I think this is great. So that was the first thing I wanted to say. Second thing, one of the things you missed that this was this summer that I've gone to for like 10 years, but I had a bunch of family things collide today. That is the special education law conference. That is free. It's usually held in Provo. It's amazing. They have 300 to 400 educators, attorneys, all different people come together, and they have outside experts and they have Utah experts. And it is just, if you want to learn more about special education, it is just really fabulous. And they just make it very easy to attend and to learn the stuff, and the sessions are wonderful. So I wanted to also add that. And the third thing, keeping 3 things in my mind all at once, was, well, I was just going to say, I was only able to go to 1 day of URSA, but I got to say a special thanks to Sybil who made that possible. And when I only decided like a week in advance, and it was really nice to go and attend and see the rural superintendents I've worked with over the years. So those are my 3 comments.
I too want to thank Dr. Dixon for this wonderful handout. I will be using that because I have decided that that's one of the places that I want to up my game is to be spreading the good news of schools in Utah. I'm embarrassed to say the other day I was watching a local TV show, and the expert there had mentioned that the Sharp survey was out and said that 90% of parents were so pleased with their local schools. And I thought, and that's another thing to be adding to this, but these are wonderful pieces of evidence about all the great things that are going on. And I went to URSA and I was so impressed with staff. they were everywhere and they were saying everything that needed to be said. I The way that they addressed mental health in so many different ways at that conference was just wonderful. And there's such a feeling of warmth and love and concern for those teachers. So that made me extremely happy. And then finally, it was nice at uh, First Lady Cox's Show Up for Teachers event just last week. Was that last week? I don't know. July is a big blur. But for those of you that didn't go, I recommend you go in the future. It too is a wonderful event um, to spread the love of education and teaching, and to see some amazing teachers at work and not at work. For those of you that didn't go, one of the things that happened with the advocates, we were each given 4 Amazon gift cards, and we were charged with giving them out to teachers that were at the event. Now, the teachers got a swag bag that was pretty nice, but they didn't want us to just give those out. They wanted us to engage with those teachers, and what a joy that was! Is to talk to teachers and see what they're doing and how their year's going and what they're looking forward to, and such happy, positive, glorious teachers we got to laugh with. So I think that education in Utah is in such a good place, and I thank you and your staff and the great teachers in our state for bringing us such good news that we get to share.
Just then remember straight and then back to Superintendent Dixon.
I'll be really quick. Um, I'll be quick since we're about 30 minutes over time. And so I
3 hours.
I so appreciate the support that USB gives to rural schools. I know the first time I went, I went about 12 years in a row now, except for 1 year, I think during COVID. But the impact of the resources and the people and the money that we provide for that really makes it to where they can put on a great event for those teachers. It's one of the highlights of my year, and I really appreciate that. I appreciate the governor's wife, First Lady Abby Cox. Um, what dedication to the profession of teaching, and she herself is a teacher, special ed teacher, and I think that probably gives her a special place in the heart of education. So anyway, thank you.
May I? Is it okay, Chair Hart?
Oh, Member Vargas.
Is that okay? I just had a couple quick questions, and maybe these are emails. I would love to know the 10 states in the compact.
I will send that to you all. I don't know who they are. They're on a website somewhere, but I could easily find out for you.
Okay, and then if it's acceptable, Chair, I would just like to take the opportunity to ditto what Member Lear said. I had registered to go to URSA and had some sort of a crisis in my life, and Sybil hauled me out of that mess so fast. It was just really nice. She did a really great job in very little notice. And so I was super thankful for that. And then a couple things that you didn't mention that I had the pleasure of going to was the safety conference. And then another training with the office, the Title IX training. And so I think lots went on this summer. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you to board members who shared things that were not on the list. For sure, we had a lot going on. I appreciate all of you who have the time and take the time, even if you don't have it, to attend many of our functions. I just neglected to recognize somebody online, and it's because this is my bad. I thought that we're pushing this to September. Some of you have reached out and noticed that, including board member Carrie recently, that one of our staff members was featured in Education Week. Lindsay Henderson, there was a feature on Miss Lindsay, and she is just killing it. She is doing so much great work, and people are talking about it. And I love that Utah is just in the forefront. It's sort of takes my breath away. We've been sort of low key, not sort of, we've been a real low key state. And it seems like everywhere I went this summer, well, Utah. In fact, we've had people say, can you use a state other than Utah? And Lindsay is one of those people who has really led our math efforts. And to the point that I know that Chair Moss has asked for a broader presentation on mathematics. So I think we're going to ask to put that on the docket for September. So you see Lindsay there on film. Thank you, Lindsay, for waiting in the wings. And again, my bad, messed up. But Lindsay will be joining us next month and give you some information on the great work that's been happening with mathematics. Thank you, Lindsay. We're really proud of you. And
I'm
Wrap-
wondering if
wrap it up.
Lindsay ever stops smiling. I don't think I've ever seen Lindsay without the smile. So, and I second that. Lindsay actually sends out a mathing newsletter, and she includes the very first item is it's not a brain teaser, it's not a puzzle, it's just a very involved math problem that is fascinating. And I look forward to it every single time that hits my mailbox, my inbox. I know I'm going to be spending a good bit of time doing that instead of my other work. So thanks, Lindsay.
All right, thank you, Superintendent Dixon.